All right, well, today our sermon for this morning will be presented by yours truly, Student Pastor Mark. And hopefully this will help keep you awake. Hopefully you'll enjoy this. I know it's kind of a sleepy weather outside today, don't you think? So today I am going to begin my sermon. After I just said I'm hopefully going to try and keep you awake, I am going to begin my sermon by sharing a little parable with all of you that I kind of personally, I've always liked. Hopefully you will too. And here we go. A woman was diagnosed with a terminal illness and given 3 months to live. She asked her pastor to come to her home to discuss her final wishes. She asked him, what she could do and what songs she wanted and that kind of thing. So she gave him all that information, what songs she wanted sung, what scripture she wanted read, which outfit she wanted to be buried in. And then she said, oh, and one more thing. I want to be buried with a fork in my hand. And the pastor was surprised. And the woman explained, in all my years of attending church services and church socials and potluck dinners, and I always remembered that when the dishes of the main course were being cleared, someone would inevitably lean over to me and say, keep your fork. Because it was my favorite part, because I knew something better was coming. Whether it was the velvety chocolate cake or deep dish apple pie, something wonderful. So I want people to see me there in that casket with a fork in my hand and wonder, what's with the fork? And then I want you to tell them, keep the fork, because the best is yet to come. And the pastor's eyes welled up with tears of joy as he bid the woman goodbye. He realized that she had a better grasp on heaven than he did and knew something better was coming. At the funeral, when people asked him why she was holding a fork, the pastor told them of the conversation he'd had with the woman, and he said that he could not stop thinking about the fork, and he knew that they probably couldn't stop thinking about it either. And he was right. Keep your fork. The best is yet to come. So I'm curious. I saw a few smiles as I started relaying that parable. How many of you are familiar with that one? How many of you have heard that before? Okay, I know at least a couple of you have. Okay, good. It's originally attributed to Roger William Thomas from the book A Third Helping of Chicken Soup for the Soul. Wow, someone was hungry, huh? Now, I know that isn't necessarily a spiritualist read. However, that particular story really does do a phenomenal job of expressing just what spiritualism has known all along. The best is yet to come. How many of you out there today truly believe that phrase, that the best is yet to come? I know I do. And actually, you know what, I do need to kind of amend that statement a little bit. I don't just believe that the best is yet to come, I know it is. I've been there, I've seen it, and it is glorious. Can anybody tell me, where is this there? Or where is it that I speak of? Anyone care to wager a guess as to what I'm talking about?
Heaven.
Exactly. Or what us spiritualists term as Summerland, yes. You get a sunflower pin. Come see me after service. So, that's exactly right, we are talking about Summerland, that amazing and beautiful destination that each of us here can go to after we breathe our last. And it's our choice to go there. If we choose to go there, we can. Now, why wouldn't anybody want to go there? I mean, it sounds absolutely amazing, and it really is. It really is. However, before I can explain the power of choice with all of you, I must first begin by providing a brief travelogue of that next step beyond this one in our great continuum of infinite intelligence. Please ensure that your seat backs and tray tables are in their full and upright positions. Our safety exits will be provided on your left at the front door here, on the right over in the healing room door, and at the back of the chapel there are the double doors. Fasten your seat belts. It's going to be a bumpy night. No, I'm just kidding. For the purposes of this very quick and painless excursion into the joy, peace, and light that is Summerland, it's going to be nothing like the boat ride from Willy Wonka, in other words. It's going to be a nice, smooth trip. Nobody wants that one. So, how do we get to Summerland? with due respect to Margaret and her wonderfully pithy reply from a month or so ago, we do not need to die necessarily to visit Summerland. As a matter of fact, you've all visited that place many times while you've been here on earth. Now, show of hands really quickly, and I know I touched on this in my dream sermon, but how many of you have had a dream about a loved one in spirit? Okay, most of you have, okay. Now, how many of you, after you had that, quote, dream, felt a greater sense of peace, or even at times feeling completely overwhelmed by that experience when you woke up? That's what I thought, yeah.
Still to this day.
Yeah, it sticks with you. And, like I said, I say that it's a dream, but really, it's more how did you feel after you woke up from that visit from spirit? And I mean, it can be pretty intense, and it's not always a very happy, uplifting feeling. Sometimes it's just one of peace and contentment. That feeling of closure. And occasionally, sometimes we will feel a little bit of a sense of melancholy or a little bit of a sense of loss when we get back from those visits. And a lot of that is because we are going to a place that is infinite love, infinite compassion, just pure joy. And when we come back here, and we're back on earth, it's kind of, you're not surrounded by that infinite love and compassion anymore. So in a way, it's kind of like going from home where you feel comfortable, you feel safe, everything feels great, to going away to school where everything is unfamiliar and new. That's kind of why when you come back from those visits, you might feel a little melancholy at times. Now, as we are able to bring those higher dimensional thoughts, feelings, and energies to us here on earth, that love, that compassion, we are raising the vibration of our own world to help it match up to the energy of Summerland. And, I can hear you all out there already now. It's like, enough. You spent this entire time just telling us about what's going to be coming up and how you're promising a tour of Summerland, but when are we going to get there? Okay, I'm going to do that right now. I admit, I haven't gotten to it yet, but, there's so much that I have to talk about. There's so many things I want to tell all of you. But remember, the best is yet to come. And if you don't believe me, if you're still wondering if you're going to see anything great when you transition, yes, wonderful things. I know you know that reference. Once again, as spiritualists, you don't have to just take my word for it. Each and every one of you have had your own experiences there as well. Not just a visit from a loved one while asleep, but you have touched the etheric plane well in your own individual meditative states. In addition, we have the words of far more wise and phenomenally more connected mediums than myself. For example, Mr. John C. Leonard wrote quite extensively in his book, The Higher Spiritualism, about his visions of Summerland. And here's one of his descriptions of what it's like. Now let me know if this sounds familiar to anybody who has heard me prattle on about how much I love Summerland and what it's like there. I think he provides an excellent reason why you should always remember to keep your metaphysical fork. Time after time, it has been stressed by those who have made the change called death that the newly arrived entities find a world or state of being not very different from the one we have just left. Orientation to the new environment, while challenging, is not difficult to achieve. This is true because the new surroundings apparently so closely resemble the scenes of Earth that the newly arrived entity does not feel tremendous shock. Many of the things that make Earth life familiar, such as landscapes, companionship, and conscious awareness, exist in the etheric world. Thus, everything soon becomes quite natural, and the reality of the new existence becomes easier to accept. Now, Mr. Leonard wrote that passage back in 1927. But, in some ways, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Summerland is still filled with beautiful landscapes, buildings, and companionship, and all that's pure and good and right. And wherever you go and wherever you are, there's always going to be some light. Not to mention all the wonderful loved ones that you get to reconnect with in that moment. When you make your transition to spirit, you will see these loved ones who have gone before you, and they are waiting to reconnect and joyously welcome you back home. And that's my personal word for Summerland. I just call it home because it feels like where we belong. There is beautiful topography, buildings that we can barely dream about here on Earth. There's, don't even get me started on that angelic chorus. How many of you have heard either when you're waking up, or when you're asleep, or when you're in meditation, have any of you out there heard the most beautiful, I'm going to call it soul-stirring music that you have ever heard before? Have any of you ever experienced that? Okay. Somebody out here has. When you experience that, what I'm calling an angelic chorus, it is beyond anything that you can even begin to describe. It is amazing. And in addition to that wonderful music that we will have to look forward to, I have to mention our wonderful animal companions that are waiting for us. I just touched on that sermon, but just as a reminder, we will have our animal companions waiting for us, and man, that is the most joyous reunion there. It is all the love, all the joy, all the hope, all the beauty, and it is easily at our disposal upon our arrival if we would just be ready to accept it. The best really is yet to come, so have no fear. And, I've been asked time and time again by people, what do we do to pass the time when we're in Summerland, when we're in heaven, when we're home? And, some people ask, do we work? Do we have jobs? In my experience, if you want to have some sort of a job, if you want to have something to do to help you to improve, to make it more of an easier lesson, to help you to grow and evolve more quickly, you can. And, I'm sure a few of you are familiar with the movie Beetlejuice. I see a few heads nodding out there. Okay. Now, this is kind of a throwaway joke in the movie, but honestly, in my experience, there's a kernel of truth to this, just a little bit. There's a throwaway joke in the movie about how people who have committed suicide become civil servants in the afterlife. And in my experience, people who have been in that situation when they were physically alive, a lot of those people, they do tend to gravitate to being of service to others when they make their transition to Summerland. And the reason is, it's not any sort of a penance. And I want to make absolutely sure that I make this very clear. They are not serving a penance. They are not being punished. Those people choose those different areas to help because they know what it's like to be in a position where they don't feel like they have any help. And so they will gravitate to helping those who have been in a similar situation, whether that be helping people transition who have had a more difficult passing, or whether that means helping people who are still physically alive, who are going through things. They'll become a guiding influence for those people. But that's just one example. I've also seen people who have chosen to become what I call a builder. These are the people that come up with amazing and wonderful ideas for those of us here to help inspire us. Things like the Eiffel Tower or the Taj Mahal, all of those kind of wonderful engineering feats have come first from people in spirit who come up with the idea, and they actually created in spirit on a much grander scale than we can here. So you would be amazed at the beautiful buildings that they have, and all the learning, and all the healing and the growth. And still other people will choose to work with animals or help those who are physically alive, and to help with difficult situations. So if you choose to, you can get a job in spirit. I'm calling it a job, but that's not exactly accurate. That's just something that we can understand and relate to. But also, it has been my experience, and as I have touched on in other sermons, even though Summerland has not changed, we have changed. Many of us have lost our connection to spirit. And so it does make our transitions a bit more challenging, but I know that as we each adjust to life in Summerland, after we shuffle off this mortal coil, that we will find that peace. We will find that love, that joy, that sense of being happy and whole and complete, but only if we choose to. And I bet you all forgot that I had mentioned at the very beginning of this sermon, or maybe you kind of forgot because I went off on a few tangents, but I did mention that we all have that choice, right? We all have that choice to go to Summerland if we choose to. So let's get back to that. It's been my experience, as well as the experience of countless other mediums, that our personal energy vibration, or however you want to think of it, our aura energy, our thoughts, our feelings, all of that will affect what sphere, what world, what plane of existence, what dimension, whatever term you want to use, that we will gravitate to when we breathe our last here on earth. All of that depends on how we are now. And I've touched on this in my Reconnect Your Spirit sermon. Basically, it boils down to principles number 7 and 8. We make our own happiness or unhappiness, but also that there is always a new beginning available to us. Continue to always strive towards greater awareness, greater consciousness, and greater love. If you find yourself doing those things and you focus on filling yourself and filling the world around you with as much love and compassion as possible, you're going to find yourself transitioning quite easily to that wonderful sphere or vibration that we call Summerland. So from now on, starting with today, as you leave this chapel and you go about your lives, please remember this most important thing. Keep your fork, because the best is yet to come. Thank you.